Hey, hi everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, folks, wherever you are joining us from today. Really excited to talk about technology, talent, and the volatile conditions that we are in. So this is going to be a very interesting discussion that we have today. I have an amazing panelist with me, which will do a round of introductions. But what we don't want to do is we don't want to leave all of you all behind who are joining us. So we also want to know where are you joining us from today. So please put a comment in the chat, tell us who you are, where you're joining from. If you have any questions and you want us to kind of make sure we comment and we answer during the discussion, please put those comments. So we definitely want to know where you're joining us from, what is the major reason you're here with us. And I know we'll have an exciting discussion with our panelists. So just quick introduction about me. I'm Ronak. I'm a partner with Everest Group. I lead our technology services research based out of New Jersey and been with the firm for close to 10 years. And I have the pleasure of having this amazing panelist with us. So we decided we're going to go alphabetical here. So Agnieszka, we'll start with you. And why don't you do an introduction and then we'll go to Arpita and so on.
Hello, everybody. It's my great pleasure to be here with you. Thank you, Ronak, for inviting me. I'm CEO of Talent Alpha. It's a tech talent platform connecting companies that are in search of tech talent with these who have this tech talent. We operate in 55 countries nowadays, and we are connecting more than 1,000 companies altogether. We are also publishing every year. We publish the Future of Work report, which we created together also with Everest. And me personally, I'm an expert in the future of work, platforms, and communication.
Thanks. Thank you for joining us. Really excited to have you. Arpita.
Hey, hi everyone. This is Arpita. I'm a practice director at Everest Group. I lead the Charter for Technology, Skills, and Talent practice area. Our research focuses on themes that are related to future of IT workforce, and we help strengthen tech talent strategies for global IT service providers, contingent talent firms, as well as IT workforce arms for leading global enterprises. Really glad to be here on the discussion today and looking forward to talking to our amazing panelists.
Thank you, Arpita. Tom, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ronak. Thank you, Arpita. Great to be on this panel and very grateful to have this opportunity to speak to many of you. My name is Somnath Chatterjee. I'm the founder of Prism Force. We are a vertical software for the tech services sector. We are working with around 25 IT services companies with more than 500,000 users on the platform. Our ambition is to be the first vertical software for the tech services sector, which we think is quite underrepresented in this area. And prior to this, I spent around 14 years at McKinsey. I was leading McKinsey Digital and served around 35 IT services companies across the globe. And that's where I saw this big opportunity to transform talent supply chain in particular. And that's how we started building out this product 3 years ago.
No, it's so exciting. And I was very interested in the kind of the composition of the panel here, right? Because we have two platform companies out here, representing on the global scale. And you are doing some amazing work. So we definitely want to get into that. But I wanted to give a little bit of a, overview of why this topic is, at least especially for me, why it is important, right? But there's a personal story around this. So at least I've been working with a lot of financial services institutions around technology talent and how they are kind of building those talent pools around and the issue around demand and demand supply gap. We created a hypothesis for one of the largest banks in the US that hey, from an engineering and IT talent, you're going to have a massive demand supply gap. And this was way back in 2018. With that hypothesis, we said we need to understand how the services ecosystem, the large system integrators and consulting firms are getting ready to build talent, and then also their readiness for next generation IT talent. And this was that stage where we were accelerating cloud adoption, we were talking about data and the early days of AI. And we did the first assessment around next gen IT talent readiness. So talent readiness as an assessment area did not exist in the analyst world. We were the first one to do it. So I'm very proud of being part of that journey, and I've seen that evolve. And and when we did the research in 2019, we put this out. We're going to have a massive demand supply gap going forward, and we actually saw that happening Some of it are kind of aggravated because of COVID and post-COVID recovery in the digital market. But for me, that kind of built a very strong conviction that we are not still out of the talent market challenges that are there. Though the talent market has somewhat cooled off, but if you look at from a next generation IT, be it AI, be it cybersecurity, data, cloud, and even lot of non-STEM skills that you need for doing product and product engineering, those are in short demand. So we have a strong volatility in the market, which we are all dealing with. And that is where I know, Arpita, you've been doing bulk of your research in this space. So, I would want to start with you, right? Again, can you give us an idea about what are you seeing in this area from your research? And then we'll go to our other panelists and also get their views around this.
Sure, Ronak. So, as analysts, we have this amazing position of sitting between IT service providers, enterprises, as well as contingent staffing firms. And the observation that we have based on our conversations is for enterprises globally, the relationship between their technology and business operations is becoming very codependent and intimately related, right? And hence, creating that high performing IT workforce is not just an issue for technology leaders now, but it has become an urgent business priority overall, right?
Yeah.
And some of the key challenges that businesses are facing, I classify them across three major categories. The first challenge is around finding and acquiring the right talent, because the kind of demand that's out there right now, specifically if we talk about very high demand skills, you have to pay premiums as high as 40 to 50% even for compared to traditional IT roles, right? You might be hiring a software developer, but as soon as you start looking for that AI ML skill, that ML ops skill, you might have to pay premiums. Even if you're paying the providers, you might have to pay very high premiums for this talent. The second challenge is around building tech talent continuity, right? How do you ensure that you're optimally utilizing your current talent pool? How do you manage your talent pipeline? How do you effectively develop your skill demand outlook so that you don't end up with a skills pool that's drastically misaligned with where the market is going? And
Yeah.
then finally, the third challenge is around building a self-sustained learning ecosystem, right? Most tech leaders understand the value of uh, going and acquiring talent literally it's only going to get tougher by the day, right? Especially with the decreasing half lives of skills. And hence they understand the value of creating a strong L&D ecosystem internally that can fuel self-sustained learning within the organization. And I want to intentionally double down on the term self-sustaining, because at the center of this workforce is people. We're all at the end of the day people businesses, and hence you need to figure out the ways how you incentivize your workforce to continuously upskill and reskill themselves, evolve their skill portfolio. And then you have to ensure that you have that ecosystem in place that can empower this massive ongoing learning and development exercise. And yes, we have our amazing panelists to talk about some of these themes in a lot more detail. But if there's one takeaway or learning I'd like to drive for our audience through the session, is it is going to be that there is a strong and fast growing ecosystem of product solutions in the market that are solving these exact problems. And hence, tackling these challenges is going to require a fundamental change in how you approach talent management within your organization. And you really need to look beyond your traditional methods and more proactively seek learnings from your peers and take advantage of this fast growing ecosystem.
Yeah, thank you. That's fantastic. And I think one point that you mentioned around skills is what I want to double click with. And I know, Som, you and I have been talking about skills and the importance of skills. So want to understand from you, right? What are the drivers of volatility in the talent market, and how do you see it linked to skills, right? And primarily, what has changed lately? And would love to get your perspectives on that.
Sure. No, thank you, Arpita, for the commentary, and thanks, Ronak, for the question. I think if I were to just dimensionalize, probably volatility is up probably 10 to 20 times in the last 5 to 7 years, right? Not less. Like, if anything, it will be on the higher side. And primarily two, three factors, right? Like, one is, Arpita, you talked about the half-life of skills. Definitely, I think, and coupled with that, like the plethora of skills that you need to manage now, right? Vis-a-vis what was the case, like, say, probably 10 years ago, it would be either a .NET guy or a ERP guy or or maybe someone who knows Java, right? Like those numbers have gone up exponentially, right? And the reason for that is the speed of tech innovation is just amazing, right? And therefore, the enterprise tech landscape itself is getting more and more cluttered because people are using best of breed, different types of solutions, and all of that has a implications on skills. And especially for providers or for the internal IT team, which has to supply like talent to the end consumer, you have to manage that like large number of SKUs of skills now vis-a-vis what was the case earlier, right? So that's one big driver. The other driver, more so for again tech organizations and tech providers in particular, is just the shortening like of projects itself, right? Gone are the days where it was a lot more about lift and shift. You would have a lot more lead time, and basically you're just moving jobs out of US to offshore locations, right? That's not the case anymore. It's a lot more about like much fast-paced development timelines, sprints, right? Working very closely with business, Apita, which you mentioned, right? It's no longer like IT is in one axis and then business in some other axis, right? It's a lot more intertwining of these two functions, right? And therefore, that leads to both lower like lead times. You don't get so much of reaction time, and second is like the project sizes itself is shorter, right? So therefore, the pressure on the team which is supplying this, right, either a recruitment team or a internal talent supply chain team, right, is like a lot more higher than it was the case earlier. And that means that you need to now measure everything as if the unit of measurement is now skills, especially for providers. For a long time it was very much about clients, project, and resource, but you have to now unbundle the resource as or a people as like a portfolio of skills, and you need to manage for it, right? And that is what is leading to like more complexity in doing all of this, because now you have to have skill as a one major axis when you think about like fulfillment, when you think about talent skill building, when you think about even compensation structures, right? So skill becomes a very important axis which needs to be measured and needs to be accounted for versus what we were doing earlier.
No, yeah, I agree, and I think that is where the role of how do you have the right data to kind of make those decisions? Do you know how the demand is going to scale up, where it is, how it is, what's the shape of it becomes so critical. And Ignace, I think this is a good place to kind of bring you into the conversation, right? Because you run one of the largest talent intelligence platform. What has been your perception of the talent volatility? Which areas are you seeing it, and what's driving it? Like, would want to get your views as well.
Yeah, so I totally agree, and we see it on our platform that some skills are in need now more than others, and some are decreasing. So for sure, skills related to AI, machine learning, and especially data science, data mining, data engineering are growing, and the demand is growing, and especially the appetite to tech availability on the market is growing, even if companies are not so eager to hire so quickly.
Yeah.
But we also see growing interest in cybersecurity, especially around AI-related risks. Some also DevOps engineers connected with just willingness to connect dots. Cloud is still strong, although I would say also still available. There's a growing demand on full stacks, which is quite interesting, which is connected with companies, first of all, wanting to see the bigger picture and having people that see the process end to end. But also for some companies, it's just a matter of cutting costs. So they think that one person can do the job of two or even a team. So this is something around skills. We also see some demand around specific platforms, which is something new for us. So there is a growing demand, and people are asking about very specific platforms that emerged, for example, in US or any other country lately, last years. And there is a demand for developers, architects, and all other people that can help to integrate and to also customize these solutions for companies. So this is what we see regarding what skills are in demand on the market. However, I would say that we are in a very, very interesting situation now and point, because the volatility is not only around skills and what's needed, but also where skills are located, and are they available on the market or not in several models. So I would say that for the traditional recruitment, it can be a very tough time, and finding especially these skills in demand can be very tough. On the other hand, we have some resources and places where skills are still available and people are available, but in other models. So, for example, we have plenty of people that prefer work in open talent models, but companies don't want to hire them, or not. It's not even hire; it's engage them, because they are not ready with their models, and they are not ready to cut their work into short projects, and be able to streamline projects to external providers or talent. And I think this is where the gap still is, this connection between companies in need of tech talent and willing to grab more of some specific areas of tech talent and availability on the market, but not exactly where the companies are looking for.
Yeah. So, Agnieszka, I think one thing that I also take away from this is we always talk about the demand side of it, but there's a very important piece of the supply and the supply dynamics, which basically means as we think about the future of work and as we think about the future employees, their needs are very different, right? They have different aspirations that they're looking out of the workplace and from their employer, and how do we meet that? And this can be from basic piece of how we onboard and hire them, the way we work with them, the way we give them career mobility, and also skilling and other investments. And I know, Arpita, you've been doing a lot of work on that piece, right? Which is because we always talk about demand, right? But I also want to talk about the supply side, their voice, right? So from an employee perspective, what does that look like? What's that equivalent Maslow hierarchy, right? What are we seeing out there?
So I think very interesting topic, Agnieszka. I think there are two very conflicting themes currently out there. The first
Okay.
theme is around persistent talent, right? As businesses and technologies intertwine, you are shifting to a platform centric models. Your entire business is running on a platform. Now, so I agree to your point that projects are becoming shorter, but this platform in a way is becoming a more continuous stream that needs the fuel to power the organization. And there's some level of stickiness that organizations are looking for. If you hire a
Right.
talent team, you want that talent team to continue on that project for a while, because otherwise, then you get a new team, you get a new provider. 80% of the bandwidth might go in learning, and there are so many nuances, right? There are industry specific nuances that might need to be considered. There's so much data out there, the data ecosystem, learning their ecosystem, learning your data estate. So all of this knowledge translates into having that persistent continuous deployment of talent. And at the same time, from the supply side, we are seeing a massive movement towards freelancing model, right? There's a strong this especially this work back to office theme is, I think IT workforce is especially struggling a lot with that concept. So most of the service providers, and this comes in our conversations a lot, how do we get our talent back to office? Is there a hybrid workforce model that we can switch to? So again, this freelancing model, like, it has advantages for enterprises as well, because you do not have to pay for that entire team for all the years that they are working with you. You directly shift to a scalable, flexible model where you can increase and decrease capacity based on your requirements. And that's why there's another ecosystem of players, which is contingent staffing or digital enablement players. What they are doing is their entire value proposition is, we are going to provide you a ready to deploy pod. This pod has this specific skills, this specialized expertise that can deliver this exercise for you, and then we are out of your system. We're not taking the control of your organization. You don't have to put your data out there, your technologies out there. So there are two conflicting themes But both of those themes, we are seeing growth in both of those things. It all comes down to what works for you in which situation. It all comes down to that our standard MBA answer of it depends on which model you should go for.
If I can add into it, there was a very interesting research by McKinsey lately, which showed that 80% of C-level managers last year lost somebody very attractive from their talent pool because their recruitment process was too long. So I would say that in this here we have two very interesting areas. First is how the companies can be more efficient in their recruitment process and be more efficient together with the technology that provides very high a lot of opportunities to improve the process, starting from first interviews through the whole applicant tracking systems backed by AI, and going and ending with the matching and AI and machine learning enabled matching. And the second area is how to also take advantage of these open talent models, and companies are all around the world ready to do the work. I will give you just one example. In our ecosystem, we have hundreds of companies that have AI skills, and they have capacity to do projects. But it's not so easy to get a client, even if companies are in a very high demand. So I think here we have a lot of opportunities still.
Yeah.
I just wanted to add, like, one of the big reasons for that team is because often companies don't know like how to take that build versus buy versus rent or lease decision, right? Because to do that, you need to have a strong point of view on like what is your current inventory of skills, how is that inventory changing tomorrow, how can you build that skill versus buy that skill, like meaning lateral hiring or even subcontractor that skill, right? Because ultimately those are like multiple such decisions lead up to a project, and then you outsource a project, right? So I think that's where like at least we have seen many of the leading providers have a strong point of view, or they are trying to build a strong point of view, again using a lot of AI by skill profiling their employees, and then be much more future ready, right? And that can provide us a big input into your workforce management plan, which needs to span multiple years as well, right? Because this thing is changing very fast, right? It needs to be a continuous like a quarterly plan which keeps getting updated.
Yeah, I agree. So I wanted to also take the pulse of all of those who are joining us live. I know we get a larger proportion of folks who kind of listen to this and on demand, but those who are on live, I thought we'll ask them a question, and this is like a poll question which will get up on the screen in a minute. But again, the thought process around asking the question from a poll perspective is, you know, how would individuals, again, all of you on the call, right? How would you describe your experience in navigating the tech talent scramble, right? So we'll get the poll up on the screen immediately. So we thought we'll just make it very easy for you to respond to it. So instead of asking you to type overwhelming or challenging or adaptable or manageable and effortless, we thought let's do this through the emoticons out here. So these ones, you use this in all your private conversations, also with your teams these days. So we thought, get your thoughts in it, right? How do we see this, right? Do we see in your organizations the tech talent scramble is overwhelming? Is it like challenging? Are you seeing or it's something which you are adapting to it, or it's manageable, or it's effortless? It's like a cakewalk, right? So would love to kind of get folks who are live with us to kind of share where are they in that piece, and then as everybody thinks about this and respond to us in terms of where they are in the journey and put that in the comment, and as we see all the emoticons coming out here, in the meanwhile, Soma, I wanted to get your views, right? You work with some of the biggest service provider brands out here. And as you think about this conversation, right, amongst those 5 options, what are your clients telling you? Where are they in that spectrum of being overwhelming to effortless?
I think it has certainly changed, like as you all know, right, over the last 12, 18 months. but getting top talent, right, for high demand skills is always either overwhelming or like it's pretty tough, right, as you know. And again, it goes back to fundamentals, right, because the space is changing very fast. People also like who are able to adopt to say the next set of Gen AI skills, right, would be the ones who are like a lot more to do with high learnability and so on, right? And that will come at a much higher factor cost. It's not going to be easy, right? So constantly trying to stay ahead of the game is not easy, especially for providers, because in a way you are in the business of monetization of skills, right? So you need to
Yeah.
have a strong point of view of how skills are changing and be prepared ahead of time, or take these micro build versus buy versus subcontract kind of decisions, right? In a very thoughtful way, so that always you are trying to optimize like the many different contrasting options that you have, right? But definitely, I think it has got a bit better given what has happened to the industry. But there's always a scramble for top talent, and that I think is not going to change in spite of all the business cycles.
No, thank you for that. And Agnieszka, your views, right, as you work with your clients from a talent volatility perspective, how is it for them? Are they seeing this to be manageable, effortless? Is it overwhelming? What do you see that?
So we work mainly with companies from Western Europe
Yeah.
and also located in Central and Eastern Europe. And for them, times are rather better now to hire. So we can see more people available on the market. Of course, there are some areas that are in need and they are struggling, as I mentioned before. But in total, companies have more space now, and also the expectations of specialists in IT are a little bit decreasing. Um, I've heard about stories that would be not possible even half year ago. That programmers are actively looking for a job, which didn't
Yeah.
happen before. And secondly, they cannot find for some time. Data shows that they find in average in 2 to 4 months they can find a new job. But still, it's much longer than before. So the pressure is a little bit lighter. That also is shown in demand for external providers. So outsourcing providers are, I would say, they perceive less demand on the market. But at the same time, companies are also cutting budgets for IT and tech, just looking for some kind of savings. So we are also perceiving and seeing the situation where where some investments are postponed, and it's getting to the point where companies cannot wait longer, much longer. So IT departments in big companies in end clients end clients are suffering at the moment. They are complaining that they have a lot of the backlog is getting longer. And I think we are at some point where companies will start making decisions about new investments. And when at somebody in the sector starting investing in tech, the others are looking in their direction, and they see that somebody started and they cannot wait. So I believe that in some time it will that companies will start hiring again much more than now. And it will be for sure for this time being before the AI will really get smart enough to help with this work.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think that fear of missing out is the challenging piece, which I agree with, which I think everybody will start kind of doing a fast follower move. And as soon as you have a fast follower move in the industry, you see that talent dynamics change suddenly, because one skill, one area becomes really hot, and you start seeing demand kind of coming back. Everybody starts preparing for it. And I think that mad rush for talent happens. And I think that is where talent supply chains become very important, is what I've seen. And also you mentioned, Agnieszka, AI, right? So AI being used to improve the talent supply chain is that another thing. And so I know you've been kind of working a lot on this areas. Could you give us some use cases, and examples of how providers, right, or large service providers and organizations are using AI to improve their talent supply chain?
Sure, sure. So again, like just to decouple, right? Like talent supply chain would be almost thinking of talent as a supply chain, where like the SKU for a e-commerce player would be the inventory, right? Here, the inventory is a person, the skill, role, location, many other parameters, right? So how can we bring a lot more science to it rather than trying to do it like in a scramble? Because that's going to stay, right? There will be always some good, very strong demand. There will be a big demand supply mismatch for top talent, and that's the reason why many of the leading players are thinking through how to make AI a lot more pervasive when it comes to the entire the process, the entire hire to retire chain, right from how do we acquire like net new talent, all the way to how do we manage the existing talent, how do we profile the skills of existing talent, because often if you leave it to the developers or the employees, right, they would not be motivated to go and update their skills in the system. So what happens is the inventory that you're carrying actually is like a lot more outdated. So can we actually use AI to ingest a lot of data through multiple sources to create a skill profile of the individual, which is like a lot more accurate and much more up to date? That's what we typically try and do in our like platforms. And on top of that, like how do we then use that knowledge to take multiple decisions, right? Decisions around like which are the new projects which are coming in, right? And therefore, do we already have people on bench, or could we cross skill some people so that they can actually do the work? If not, then there could be some skills which are like, say, high volatility, short duration skills where you may not need to hire someone, right? Can you actually outsource it? Can you actually work with subcontractors or the freelancer community or gig workers to actually solve that project in a limited time frame, right? And all the way to like having a constant point of view on the demand supply gap, and therefore what do we need to build versus buy. And finally, like this is not an easy job because the space is changing very fast. What we have done in our platforms, and we have seen some of our clients deploy that, is to create almost like a language model around skills, because you need to know what is the relationship between different skills, right? So that if you are searching for, say, a React guy, if it's very costly or not available, then actually even if you get an Angular person and get them trained, cross trained, then probably you will be able to get the job done, right? So can you have a point of view on which are the clusters of skills which come together, which are the skills which are adjacent to each other, and then take actions around learning, around deployability, right? Which can create a lot more optimal like deployment of talent, which has a big bearing on both fulfillment as well as on margins for providers for sure. And for enterprises, it's a lot more about the time to market, right? If you do this job well, then you'll be much faster to clear up your backlogs, which Agnieszka talked about, right? You can chase your backlog down much faster.
Yeah. I think it's interesting, right? I heard for the first time ever somebody talk about large language models or models being built on top of skill data. And I know we had got a comment in the chat as well, right? Which talked about that there are like more than 6,000 to 8,000 skills across IT stack that are being kind of run and managed by large enterprises and providers. And on the topic of AI, Agnes, I wanted to come back to you, right? Because your core premise is talent intelligence as a core theme. How are you using AI to help all your clients and other partners to kind of use AI in their talent supply chain?
No, so I totally agree that it's crucial to have the skills mapped and well recognized. And we also are mapping several thousand of skills in IT. We invited tech specialists and also skills specialists to build a proprietary model for us of these skills. And then when we are able to collect data from each specialist on what skills they have, and we are able to compare one to another, which is not possible with CVs. It's not even possible with LinkedIn profiles. You cannot compare skills because they are so different, and people just put data in different ways, and you cannot compare them. So when you have this job done, then you can invite algorithms to match skills. So you can match people that are in need and skills that are in need with this ecosystem that you have. And it doesn't matter if somebody says that he is a Java developer or any other developer, but he has essential skills at the right level that somebody is looking for. They can find him as a matching candidates, and this is what platforms like ours can do. So they can match candidates much better based on skills, not based on the short description they have or CV they have. And the magic starts here. Then you can not only look at what skills are in need and match them with requirements, but you can also give tips to people looking for some skills. Hey, you can have also this group of people, you can easily reskill them or upskill them, or they have a very similar skill. And it's very important, especially with the platforms I mentioned before. So if you have a very new platform and you have a very narrow group of people that knows this platform, you don't have to look exactly with people with this skill, but you can think about any other similar platforms that are all around the world, and you can find people, I don't know, very skilled team in India, in Philippines, or any other place, Central Eastern Europe, knowing similar platform, and they can learn easily. So this is what algorithms can show when you're looking for the right candidates. They're also learning through the lifetime what was the best match, and also they can show companies where they have gaps and what needs to be filled in.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. And Arpita, I want to come to you also about the role of AI and the skills journey. And I know you have been kind of working quite a lot on that. But before that, I think we have interesting questions also coming up, right? So I wanted to take one of them from the chat itself, which was, and I think I'm going to summarize the question out here, which was about focus in terms of the number of skills that you know, right? So one of the things we've been thinking about is, should we talk about multi-tower skills, right? Be it project management, scrum master, product owner, business analyst, and so many other skills. Should we be kind of multi-towered skilled, or is it better to be focused on just one? And Agnieszka, you, as you see this from a talent intelligence platform, where do you see this to be a better play? Focus on one and kind of do deep specialization, or there's a role to have this multi-tower specialization? What are you seeing out there?
I'm not sure if I understand this question correctly, but I will try to answer as I understand it.
Sure.
So, of course, there's at the moment there are skills that are highly in demand, and we know that we look for people that have even low level of some skill, and
Yeah.
that. But at the end, we know that there will be a lot of different tools that will be helping people with with very simple tasks, and then this task they will help with more sophisticated tasks. At the end, having one very deep understanding of some instrument or mechanism, knowing some language very well, or knowing some mechanism very well, will be the most important for not only to work in this area, but also to use AI or any other tools that can help you. So I would rather focus probably on having some deep understanding of something, and be very very specific in some area. However, we also mentioned the half-life of skill. At the moment, is 2.5 years in some areas of tech. So if you bet wrongly, in 2.5 years, it may happen that somebody will or something will replace you. So having open mind and be able to also to flexibly learn some new and to bring some new skills to your inventory will be crucial.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that depth is important, but being able to constantly evolve and learn new skills as they come along will be important. So that breadth is important, but that mile-wide depth is something that we would definitely recommend. I know, Som, you wanted to say something as well.
Yeah,
Sure.
Ronak, I think just to add, it's almost called like the T model or the E model, right? Like T model would mean like you have a multitude of 5, 6 types of skills, adjacent at the same time, interrelated, right? But then you are very deep on 1 or 2 skills, right? One skill would be T and 2 skills would be E, right? And that's where more or less the industry is trying to go towards, because of these reasons that you talked about, right? There is volatility of skills. Some skills might just die, so you want to also play it as a portfolio. At the same time, like you have to stand out, right? You can't be just like anyone, right? Therefore you have to know something very deeply, ideally in demand as well. And just in case, like god forbid it's not in demand, then you start preparing, right? Use your learnability skills to start switching over to skills which are in demand, right? And that's something which especially for techies, right? You have to constantly keep evolving this. There's no other way, given the pace at which changes happen.
So the constant rate of learning is going to be very critical. And Arpit, I want to come back to you, right? We've been talking about skilling journeys quite a bit. It's been one of our favorite topics. And we talked about talent supply chain that Som mentioned. Agnieszka mentioned about the skills in demand and then the learnability and the learning component of it. And then skilling journey becomes the other third piece. How are you seeing that shape up? What's the role of AI within that? Would love to kind of get your views.
Yeah, and I think I'm largely aligned with what our panelists are talking about. See, the skills landscape is massive, right? 6,000, 8,000 skills. And when we talk to enterprises, and these are very large $1 billion, $100 billion of revenue, and they come to us and ask us that we have a global tech workforce. We have so many resources distributed globally. Even we as an organization do not have a centralized skill taxonomy. We are not able to understand which skills are comparable, what kind of adjacencies currently exist. They have different pyramids across geographies, even and across in different tech stacks. If you look at applications or your cloud talent or your data talent, same skill might have a different definition for a different geography. A different business unit could be using that skill differently. There could be, so you might be paying your recruit employees differently for the same level of skills. And then it all boils down to how well you are able to standardize that skill taxonomy and track those adjacencies better. And that's what I think was what Som's team is doing. I think that impressed us a lot as analysts, because this is not an exercise that you can do once and you are done with it. You have
Right.
to make sure that you keep this engine running. You do it and on an ongoing basis, tracking these skills, tracking these adjacencies, updating your skill taxonomy. And then how do you use AI as a technology to build personalized learning journeys? For example, when we were just talking about should you just focus on one skill or multiple skills, and I agree that we are moving towards pie-shaped, cone-shaped learning models where resources are prioritizing. Okay, we'll develop expertise in 1 or 2 areas, but we'll make sure that we are usable, we have transferable skills for other areas as well. And then again, this boils down to how well you are able to support your employees in that, how well you are able to guide their learning trajectory, so that their aspirations are also aligned with where the market is growing, so they do not become skill obsolete. So as an organization, it becomes your responsibility that you shape that journey. And there are solutions out there that are using technologies such as AI, machine learning, trends that are able to capture these trends more effectively, so that you are able to build a more uh, tech workforce that's more aligned with where the market is. And not just in learning and development, it can help you hire better talent. We have seen adoption of AI in acquiring talent, recruiting talent, designing the tests, hackathons that you're using to uh, analyze if the person is suitable for your organization, there is cultural fit or not, those kind of things. And then retaining the person in the organization. We are seeing use cases for AI for that as well. So I think there's a lot of opportunity out there for adopting technology to make and empower your tech workforce internally and make it more future proof.
No, thank you. And again, it's interesting, right? Because we used to have very simple career paths, right, 10 years back. and you knew there were 2 or 3 career paths you could take and specific learning journeys you could take to get where you want to get. Now, if I look at if I need to move to a target state role, there could be hundreds of different starting points that I have. And then each point can take, I don't know, 10 to 15 different pathways or even more to get to the target state, which means the employee learning journey from one role to their target state of where we want, where the demand is, or where the demand is going to be in the future, I can take thousands of different paths of learning, which means it becomes very difficult to manually manage that. And that is where the power of AI becomes important. So having the skills inventory, mapping the skills inventory to the demand and supply, mapping the skills inventory to the roles, and then being able to kind of map the learning journeys of people acquiring these skills as they move from one role to the other and what those different ways could be. That complex problem you cannot solve manually. You need the power of technology, you need the power of platforms, and that's the reason why we have 2 platform companies represented on this panel today. Is you cannot do this without the power of data, AI, and platforms. And this is such a fantastic discussion that's happening, right? And I we'll have a few minutes left before we wrap up. So I would love to have any questions that come up from folks who are joining us live. Put those comments in the chat. Even those who are listening us offline later as a recording, feel free to put the comment in the chat or reach out to one of us. We'll always be happy to answer the question. But as we start wrapping up, I think one theme that we all want to talk about is within AI is also generative AI, right? So there's a lot of conversation around generative AI and its impact on talent as a market. So we've seen that we've talked about it gonna increase the demand for talent at one end. I've heard that point of view, which is we need more engineers, we need more data people, we need more analytics resources, we need more data scientists, we need more development resources. But we've also heard the other side of the story is, hey, we'll be able to drive significant productivity where we'll need lesser number of people to do the things in a few years, right? Not right now, but in a few years as the technology develops. So it's always good, right? As we are in the wrap up stage, I do want to get each of the panelists' view on generative AI as a technology. We've all been reading about it, we all know about it, but what's your personal take on this? Where do you see this heading? And so I know you are nodding, so I'm going to go to you first. Get your views on generative AI, and then Agnieszka, over to you, and then Arpita. Let's do that in that order, so we get a view on what do you think about generative AI.
Sure. And thanks, Ronak, for the opportunity. I think, look, this typifies like what's happening in the skill space, right? It was not even there in the picture 18 months ago, and now people are like upskilling talent on Gen AI, and there's so many like pilots happening, and over time, probably those pilots will convert into large-scale projects, right? And we have seen some results of Accenture and all, even starting to report like Gen AI-led revenues, just like what they did for digital in 2014-15, right? So definitely, it's a big mega trend, right, which needs to be like caught on to. I do think that it will have a big impact on the tech services, but I think it will be a slightly positive bias in my mind. It's about like the nature of work being changing, right, rather than a compression of work. Net new services will come up, probably some low end work will go away, but then like I do believe in the ingenuity of humans, right? Like you would be able to quickly adapt to like the net new higher end work, which will then get done through Gen AI, right? And as some of you also pointed out, right, there's anyway a lot of backlog. If you talk to any enterprise, generally there's a huge backlog out there. If anything, it will help us like clear away some of the backlog on the back of the improvements on productivity. People are talking about a 20-30% improvement in productivity of just on the coding side. But remember, it's not just only coding which a typical developer does, right? There's a lot of work which goes into understanding the business requirements, like understanding like what will it take to solve this problem, right? The complexity of integrations. And if anything, like Gen AI can make some tasks easier, but it will also add a lot of complexity to the overall landscape, right? So I do think that some of the work structures will change, some of the skills will evolve, but net, I think it's still a net positive. Like people did talk about like RPA coming and wiping off the BPO industry in early 2010, right? But that didn't really happen. So it became one more enabler, right? Similarly, Gen AI hopefully will become one more enabler. And even the current compression that we see in demand, I think it's less to do with Gen AI. It's more to do with the economic uncertainty. So I think we should not misread this as if Gen AI is taking away jobs. I think we are far away from there. we are still caught in a little bit of the pilot purgatory, right? That could be also an outcome, just like what happened with IoT 5-6 years ago. So I think the jury is still out. We'll have to wait and watch, but definitely I think it's a positive for tech services, and the nature of work will change, and I'm very sure that people will adopt it.
Yeah. Ignaska, what do you? Do you want to
Yeah,
talk
so
about it? Yeah.
yeah, it's very difficult to say, I would say. When preparing the report, I mentioned at the very beginning, the work report, last edition was devoted to AI. Um, we spoke with more than 100 managers, high-level managers all around the world. We also ran a workshop together with Intelligent Leadership Hub from London, where managers, representative of public sector, and also advisors took part from all over the world, and they were preparing scenarios what can happen. And frankly speaking, all together, these people, what I can say from talking to them and taking part in these exercises, I have to say we don't know. So we don't know exactly what will happen. We can also we can predict for a few years, and as you mentioned, Ronak, at the moment we don't see it happening in large scale. Of course, we can see some layoffs. For example, in the US, more than 40,000 people were laid off this year already, with excuse of AI, but we don't know if it's really AI or it was just something to be said because they want to cut their talent pool a little bit. For sure, we can see less demand for some specific tasks like translating, content writing, this kind of stuff. Also, graphic design a little bit, but for coding, not yet. It's rather the augmentation of skills. But in the future, we don't know. It's not only Gen AI, it's also AI power. And seeing how fast it's evolving, it may happen that a lot of us will be obsolete in the future. We just don't know.
Yeah, no, I agree. And we will share the link to the report that you mentioned in the comments, right? Which is the Future of Work report. Arpita is a contributor to that one. So it's a fantastic read as well. So Arpita, your views on generative AI.
Yep, so I am largely aligned with both our panelists that the jury is still out there. We're still trying to understand how it will evolve. We don't have a strong conviction, but at the same time, there are some evolving hypotheses. And pardon me, I am an analyst and advisor, and I stick to frameworks. So we do have this Everest Group framework on impact of Gen AI on tech workforce, and it is around consume, change, and create. There are some IT roles that we expect Gen AI to consume. Most of these roles are around testing jobs, for example, where there's a lot of manual labor currently involved, and you can automate some of these tasks easily. There's another element on changing some jobs. A lot of jobs are going to become more complex, more mature. The decision, at least as I think it's a positive news for most of the employees, because you'll get the opportunity, you'll get more bandwidth to spend your time on more critical thinking, decision making kind of problem statements rather than focusing a lot of manual labor. So it will change a lot of the jobs. For example, software developer also, you'll have to influx AI in your current job role to make your solution more effective, increase your productivity along the run. And then we expect Gen AI to create a lot more new jobs, right? There's LLM is already LLM ops, vector database engineers. There are already so many roles that we are seeing suddenly spike in demand globally, especially in geographies such as North America and Europe. And we expect this trend to continue. We expect a lot more new roles to continue. But all in all, I agree with our panelists that this is not going to wipe off the requirement of resources. It's only going to change how we work rather than completely make it disappear.
Yeah, no, great insights, all three of you. And we do have a complimentary abstract of a report available to all of you. So if you want to kind of get access to it, there's a link in the comment. This is a fantastic report around talent playbook for IT service providers, right? Which is how you drive next generation IT talent readiness. I started the conversation today talking about the need for next generation IT talent readiness, how we shaped up a hypothesis around talent demand supply gap, and now it's no longer a conversation just around the demand supply gap. I think we all get it, but it's about how do we do skilling, how do we do skills inventory, how do we manage the supply chain, how do you do learning journeys, and how do we evolve roles and the future of work together to drive that experience for our employees, as well as build that right talent to deliver on our business objectives and key results, our OKRs, as we are kind of in that platform first world. So I think so much that we covered in the last 50-55 minutes that I'm so excited to kind of go through all my notes as we kind of wrap around this one. But I wanted to take a moment and thank our panelists, Agnieszka, Som, and Arpita. All three of you, thank you for taking your time doing this with us. This was really exciting. We would want to do more of these because I learned a lot. Right? I talked about large language models for skills to talking about talent intelligence platforms and how they shape up. So this was an amazing hour spent, and I'm hoping everybody who hears this is also going to enjoy listening to all of you and also connecting to all of you to learn more in terms of how you can help. So any last comments, Som, Agnieszka, and Arpita before we close?
No, I think it's been a very exciting discussion, and thank you, Ronak. Thanks, Arpita. Thanks, Agnieszka. I think the space is changing very fast, and I do think it's an imperative for organizations, whether it's tech providers or enterprise, especially the tech part of the enterprise, to really start thinking skills first. Because if anything, given Gen AI and all the other things which are changing in the industry, I think volatility is there to stay and probably only increase, right? Yeah. And the only way to tackle this is to be better prepared. And using platforms, using technology, using AI for our own good can only help us being more prepared for it.
Yeah, thanks, Agnieszka.
Yeah, from my side, if I can add something to the discussion at the very end, I would say that we need bold actions now. I mean, there is a lot of going on the market, and there is a high volatility. There are new tools, and if companies will not start or will not continue trying different solutions, different platforms, they will not also invest in innovation, not only cutting costs, which is now in we can see on the market, but really driving innovation. Without this, you cannot be competitive on the market. Yeah. So you need to try new solutions. You need to involve AI. You need to try platforms. You need to start tracking your skills in organization if you want to survive and thrive in this new reality. And thanks for having me. It was a great pleasure to talk to you today.
So thank you, all of you, and thank you, Arpita, for coordinating all of this and getting us all together and setting up this fantastic panel. Thank you, everyone, and have a great day.
Thank you
very much.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.